This session is called iPhoneography. Is that how I pronounce it? Because I feel like I'm making up like sounds.
I would just say that. That's how I say it. I just say iPhoneography. It
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay, so if I say it in my British accent, iPhoneography, did I do
I
a better job?
not too bad.
And you guys, I want to tell you the story of how this came about. Literally, guys, I met Ashley, I think almost a little over a year ago in London. We both lived there. We were attending an event through Traverse. He came with one of my friends. He was like, "This is Ashley." I'm like, "Who is this cool guy? Like, he just looks cool and he was so sweet." And I'm just like, "Hey, I'm Marty." And then fast forward to this past, what, April, May, we ended up on a press trip together. And while on this press trip, y'all got to understand, like, Ash is the man. Like, he knows how to pose. He be on his tippy toes. He be winding, like all of the above. And I'm like, how is this man taking such phenomenal photos? Not only that, we would be like sitting out on the bay of the ship, and we would all be like trying to catch the sunset, and our photos were trash, right? And then here comes Ashley like with his iPhone, and we're like, how the did you get that photo? And he's like, oh, you have to change this and this. And like every photo he took after that was like, not even after that, the whole time was bomb. And we're like, Ashley, please teach us your ways. Like, it's one thing to be a content creator and think you know what you're doing, but you don't know what you're doing. And people used to tell me all the time, like, since your stuff getting reposted, I can tell your camera's dirty. So I'm like, okay, like obviously I'm not that good with my phone like I thought I was. But Ashley is so phenomenal. So Ashley, thank you so much. We're so excited to have you here today. You guys will not see me after this. I'm just gonna let Ash take over and do what he do. But we want to let you guys know about a competition that we're having. So based off of the stuff that you guys learned from today, we are giving you guys from Wednesday and Thursday to take a photo with your iPhone using the principles that you learned today. On Friday, Ashley will go through them and then he will pick a winner. First prize gets $300, second prize $200, third prize $100. How will he know? Because you will tag him at the Traveling Sensei with two L's because he's British, and at Black Travel Alliance, and we'll go through and review the photos then. So I hope y'all come up with some amazing stuff. I'm even gonna try to enter, even though I can't win, but I just want to make my pictures better than everybody else's because I'm trying to learn a little something too. But Ash, I'm gonna let you take it from here. Kerwin, at the end of this, I will ask you to drop your announcement about T-Rex in the comments so people can know about that opportunity that we have coming up. And if you are subscribed to our emails, I will make sure to tell you guys, watch your email tomorrow. We have an exciting partnership coming out tomorrow for everybody, all BTA members to know, and we want to make sure you guys take full advantage of it. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Ashley Forrester. And Ash, just let me know when you are ready for me to go to the big screen.
Okay, no problem. Well, hello everyone. That was a great introduction. I feel really a little bit shy, but it's fine because when I'm shy, I talk, so it works. I will say that the number one pet peeve for me is a dirty camera, Marty. But yeah, no, we're gonna have a lot of fun today. Like, I'm going to try to just take you along the journey of what about to where it's gotten me today, just in terms of what I've learned. I started out primarily in like camera photography. I'm actually going to, when I start the presentation, I'm going to sort of talk you through a little bit about me, and then what we'll do is we'll go through some of the basics of a camera phone. We're only using iPhone today, and then we'll go through a few techniques, and I've got a few little like surprises and things in there for you as well. So that should be really fun to do. But yeah, let's get started. Why not? Marty, when you are ready, I'm going to share my screen. Let me see if I can do that now.
All right, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, let's go. There we go, share screen. Boom. Okay, can you see it?
All clear.
Amazing. Okay, well, welcome everyone to Photo Tips and Tricks for Content Creators by myself, Ashley. And yeah, IPHONEOGRAPhy, however you want to pronounce it, it's the same thing. But yeah, it's effectively just photography using our iPhone. We like phones are getting so advanced now. It's almost catching up to like proper like hardcore cameras. I do have a big camera. I have a DSLR. I've had it for over 10 years actually. It's my old faithful, and I do carry it around on my trips. But I found more and more over the past couple of years, it's stayed in my suitcase. And as my phone gets more and more advanced, it's just a lot easier for me to just like whip it out of my pocket and point and click, and then do what I got to do. And I think what I'll do today is I'll show you a couple of the techniques that I use, which allow me, and hopefully will allow you as well, to take those shots really quickly and really confidently, so that you can get them just how you want them, but with like minimal effort. So let's get into it. What I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about myself, very, very quickly. I don't really like talking about myself, but since we're here, an introduction is always a good idea. So yeah, this is a little bit about me. That's little Ash, the very first picture. I was born in Manchester, England, but I live in London now. So growing up, I had a nice little Mancunian accent, which for anybody that doesn't know, that's the north of England, which sounds nothing like anybody from London. And I held on to that for as long as I could, but obviously as you grow up, you tend to lose your accent and gain whichever one you're sort of in. And the reason I mention that is because these are things that tie into identity. And I think identity is really, really important. It's been a really important journey for me, just in terms of how I then portray that in my like creative things like photography. Because I was the kid with a different accent, so obviously I garnered a lot of attention, but sometimes it was attention I didn't want. So yeah, it was cool. But yeah, I was always an adventurous kid, and you can see from that was me in Florida at probably about 7 or 8. I used to go every year, so I'm guessing by the dungarees or overalls, as they're said in the States. I was about 7 or 8. But yeah, always happy kid. I actually really originally wanted to be an animator for Disney. Because I loved drawing. I've always loved telling stories, and just to see how those stories unfolded. But then around about like 14 or 15, I decided instead that I wanted to be an actor. So I grew up acting. So I acted in theater, film, short films, music videos, all that good stuff. And I just really fell in love with performance. But yeah, again, it's all telling a story. Everything it threads through is telling a story. But yeah, there was a point in 2010 when I was also directing. So I was directing 2 plays together. And for me, whenever I direct a play, it would be very visual. So I'd look at it as in a cinematic way. I'd see the stage as we're reading through the script. I'd see the stage. I'd see the angles. I'd see the lighting, and it would just feed into the creative process. And the fun for me was seeing it in my mind and getting it out onto the page or onto the stage or onto the camera. So yeah, so that's what I did. Then I moved to Japan. It was a whim. I just decided I wanted to go. I'd always wanted to go, but I didn't just want to go for a couple of days. So I decided to get a job teaching English out there. So that would be the bottom left with me on the red, looking like Wally or Waldo in America. That was me. And then to the right of that was me in China. So I've also grown up doing martial arts as well. I have a real passion for it, and I was fortunate enough to go train at the Shaolin Temple for a couple of weeks. So again, creativity, storytelling, framing, we're going to get into all of that. But yeah, and it was in Japan that I bought my first proper camera, in air quotes, because I'd always had those little disposable ones that you'd have like a certain amount, and then you'd have to send it off to get them developed, and it would take maybe, I don't know, however long it took, and then you wouldn't know whether they were good until you got them back. So I guess people of a certain generation would be able to relate to that, and I think it honestly made me get a bit better at taking photos in one go. I've had to learn recently to be a bit more free with taking multiple photos. But yeah, I'm so used to trying to get the frame in one go and then get it and then done. But I realize that not everybody does that. And even for me, sometimes I do miss that shot. So it gets really frustrating. So I'm forcing myself to slow down a little bit and take a bit more. So yeah, so that was that. And then I think I'm just going through a few like cornerstone moments that helped that influenced my creativity. And the one that says gained an angel. So in 2017, I lost my mother, which was a very, as you can imagine, a very tough time. And I think it definitely had an impact on me creatively. So I almost completely stopped being creative. I couldn't even, every time I picked up a camera, it just wasn't right. There was no feeling of, oh, let me get that shot. It was just like, I'd sort of lost that steam and that creative drive at the time. So it took a while to get that. I was just sort of kind of going through life, just, doing what I needed to do. And yeah, and I started to start to build that back up again a little bit towards 2018, 2019. That's when I started writing again. I wasn't really taking photos. But then at the end of 2019, I decided I'm going to start traveling again, because I'd also stopped traveling. My mother was the inspiration behind my traveling, I must say as well. I stopped traveling, but I said at the end of 2019, I'm going to book loads of trips. I'm going to get back into the swing of that. So I booked 11 trips, 11 different trips. I was like, okay, once 2020 happens, I'm going to go on these amazing trips. I'm going to rediscover myself. It's going to be an amazing, like, developmental experience. And then March happened. And we all know what happened around that time. Everything shut down. Life changed. And everybody's trips got cancelled. So not just mine, but everybody was going through the same thing. And I think each of those 11 trips got cancelled, it started to chip away at me mentally, and it was really tough, especially having to stay in your own house in 4 walls and then not still being able to travel anymore. It was doing a lot, so it took its toll. But then I discovered, by a random chance, I was on Facebook looking at I decided to open it. I have no idea why I opened it. I never go on Facebook, but when I opened it, I had it showed a memory, and it was of an old trip that I'd taken, and I instantly felt a little bit better, and I was like, oh, that was nice. So I ended up going down this rabbit hole of going through my old photos on Facebook, and it just made me feel better. And then it was that time that I decided, which was last year, that I'm going to start the travel page that I always put off and always said that I was going to do but never did. And that's kind of how the Traveling Sensei was born. I told myself I'm just going to make it a digital scrapbook for myself, just to make myself feel better while we're going through whatever we're going through. I'm going to put some information on there. If for some reason people like it, then great. If not, then we'll, that's it's for me. And yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And that's where we are. So what I'm going to do, we're going to move on from me, because I've talked about myself enough. But I just wanted to give you that insight so that you could see the direction and the journey that my creativity has taken. Because for me, I find that one thing that I believe about photography or videography in general is that every view that you see is for yourself. Certain views are just for you. Because for me, I'm a certain height. I will have a certain view of a certain thing that everybody might be looking at, but that particular view is for me. So my challenge to myself, and I guess my challenge to you, is how are you going to take that view that's meant for you, and then freeze it and capture it so that other people can appreciate that from your point of view. So that's just a little bit of insight into that. So let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about composition. So this is super important. Composition for me is one of the things that can really elevate a photograph. You might think you might you might think you take terrible pictures, you might think you take great pictures. You might be right on both counts, but if you a terrible picture can be improved so much just by changing the position of the focal point in it, and it will really. I'm just going to show you these things. Let's just get into it. We'll jump right in. I'm going to focus on iPhone today, as we said. I'm going to just explain a couple of the lenses. We're going to go from, I guess, iPhone 11 upwards, which will have 2 lenses, and I'm just going to explain what those are. But as the quote says at the bottom, it's not the camera, it's the person behind the camera. So I'm showing you techniques more so than, oh, you have to get this phone in order to get these results. It's just about getting those angles and compositions right. But yeah, so with the newer phones, I'm not sure how many whoever has them, but the one with 3 lenses, the 3 lenses are ultra wide, wide, and telephoto lenses. And if you look at the picture, the one on the left is ultra wide, so it's basically giving you as much of your view as possible within that photo. So it saves you backing up or trying to crane your back to try and get a whole building in. It does that for you because of the lens. Then the one in the middle is a little bit closer, but it is still a wide angle shot. And then the third one is more of a zoomed in telephoto one. That's pretty much the basics of it. With the phones that have 2 camera lenses, you have the same ultra wide and the same wide angle lens. You just don't have the telephoto lens, but that can also be changed. You can get past that just by pinching and zooming in. So there are ways around that. So let's talk about a few of the camera modes. These ones, I'm going to go through the main ones, but they're also ones that I use myself, as you can see. The main one, it would be portrait mode. So portrait mode, it's like a depth of field effect. I'm sure everybody's seen this type of thing before, whether it's in photography or film. It's where you just have the main focal point in focus, and then everything in the background is out of focus, just to let the focal point stand out a bit more. And as you can see, you can have it on shoes or footwear or objects or food or animals, as you can see with the amazing camel cameo in the center from a trip to Morocco. And the one on the right, you can have a full body one, like a full shot. And that full shot is achieved with the one with any of the two lensed cameras, so they can do that one. It's only the really close up ones, like the first one and the second one, that would need that telephoto lens. But yeah, the good thing about the portrait mode is that you can adjust the amount of focus within the camera itself, and you can do that both before you've taken the shot and also after you've taken the shot. I might try and give you an example of that in a little bit. But yeah, that's portrait mode. So that's probably my favorite. And this one is also a favorite of mine, night mode. I absolutely love these photos. So all 3 of them were taken after 10 o'clock at night, in their respective places. The first one is in London. I took that actually about 3 days ago. And I think that was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just put it straight up and I just took the shot. Second one is in the Louvre, outside the Louvre at nighttime. It was about 10 p.m. in Paris. I just happened to be able to catch that shot. I was just passing and they were there, so I just took it. Really proud of that shot. I really love that one. And then the third one is the Colosseum in Rome, and that was, I think it was about 11 at night, that the one that I took that. But yeah, what night mode effectively does is it slows down the shutter speed of when you're taking a shot. So the slower the shutter speed, the more light is let into the lens, which will allow you to get a brighter shot, I suppose. And the cameras on the phones have really improved on this over the past couple of years. So, and as you can see, it looks pretty damn good. And that is something that you can also manually adjust as well. I think I might be able to show you how to do that in a moment. Let's move on. Okay, so live photo. Apologies if anybody's asking me any questions in the chat. I can't see it. But if there's anything pressing, I think LJ or Marty might kind of just shout it out to me. But yes, this is live photo. And live photos are basically still photos, as it says, still photos that turn into videos when you activate them on your iPhone or iPad. Now, anybody that has tried one of these is probably familiar with it. When you say activate, it basically, when you take the shot, when you take a live photo, the camera records the first a few seconds before and a few seconds after the shot. So when you hard press the shot, the picture itself, and hold your finger down, it will actually show you those recorded seconds. But the cool thing about that is it also gives you different options to edit that photo in real time. And hopefully you can see my phone. I'm actually doing it live right now. I'm just going to show you a few examples of that.
We can see it.
Oh, amazing. Oh, that's a relief. This is the part that took me the longest to figure out. But yeah, so this is long exposure. So this is one of the live photo options that you have. In fact, I'll go back to live just here. I'll go back to the basic one of how it looks. So that's how the photo looks by itself. If I hard press the photo itself for a couple of seconds, you should see it move. And that is how it takes it both before and after. So it captures that moment. It also does it with sound as well. So if you are speaking or making noise, it will also do that as well. But if you look at the top left where it says live, if I press that, it should give you a couple of options here of cool ways to actually, edit that photo. Now, the way that I got that effect, the long exposure effect, is by letting the background move itself and me staying very, very still. So if I go back to the long exposure one, give it a second to load, you have that effect. So I look stationary, but everything, or the wheel in the background, gives you that really cool strobing light effect. So definitely give that a try if you can. Yeah, it can be done on anything really. You just have to be really still, and then you get that really cool effect. I'm going to show you the other options as well. So loop, pretty much how it sounds. It's just kind of showing you looping that's a couple of seconds over and over again. And this one, anybody that uses Instagram will be very familiar with, bounce, which is basically boomerang. So yeah, so you've got that sort of boomerang effect built into the iPhone itself, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I love the long exposure on this one. When I took the shot, I had this in mind, so that's just how I have it. So got that one, got this one as well, which is pretty cool. And I did this one in in Hamburg, Germany. And this doorway is actually quite famous, and I'm not sure if anybody recognizes it. It's actually the front cover of one of John Lennon's most famous records. I tried to recreate it using the long exposure and people walking. So as you saw when I went onto it, there were actually people there. And I'll show you what it looks like here. But they were walking too fast. I was trying to tell them to slow down, but they just weren't getting it. They didn't understand the assignment, but it's fine. I still got a pretty good shot, but that's the original one. And then that's my one as well. I'm still quite proud of that. It's pretty cool. But yeah, that's live photo, and that works on both the iPhone and the iPad as well. So I would definitely, as part of your challenge and when you're experimenting over the next week, try out the live photo option on your phone as well, and you won't be disappointed. You can get really creative with that. But yeah, so let's move on from that for a moment. So I was going to ask if anybody knew or had an idea what the rule of thirds was, but I'm just going to tell you because I can't see the chat. So that's fine. But if you've ever heard of the rule of thirds, it's something that is it's been around for a very long time before photography. It was something that was used when people painted, and people still paint, but back when people painted. And it basically stems, as you can see, from the theory that the human eye naturally gravitates to intersection points that occur when an image is split into thirds. What does that mean? If we look at the image, you can see we've got this grid, which you can actually have as a default on your camera when you're taking photos as well. And if you can see that the focal points for this would most likely be the cliff and the yacht, and you can see that they are very close to those crosshair intersections there. So the idea is, if you want to elevate your photo or draw attention to certain aspects of the photo, it's good to keep this rule of thirds in mind and maybe try to get it as close to the crosshairs as possible. By the way, it's they say it's a rule of thirds. It's not a hard, fast rule. It's more of a suggestion. It's a good way to get started, and it's a good way to quickly frame a shot, especially if you're in a hurry or you want to get it really, really quickly. I'll give you a quick example of that on my next slide. I love this picture. I love this photo. It's one of my favorites. And it was me in Rio de Janeiro, 2016, I think it was. And this is basically incorporating the rule of thirds. As you can see, I'm the focal point at the bottom here. So it's in that bottom third intersection, quarter, whatever you want to call it. But also I wanted the landscape to be a focal point as well. So if you look two squares above me, in the top left, that would be the mountainous area there, and that is also a focal point. Obviously, the entire background is a great focal point because it's such an amazing shot, an amazing view. But if you really wanted to draw or say what the focal points were, it would be those two things. Oh, that's one thing I do say about when I take photos of myself. I prefer the background to be the star of the shot. So a lot of the time, I will kind of be like this. I will elevate the background or whatever the place that I'm in more than I would elevate myself. And I think I prefer that. I've always been somebody that used to just go on holiday and take photos of the environment. And my family used to always just cuss me out because they're like, well, how do we know you're even there if you're not in the photos? So I'm trying to force myself into that. I guess having a travel page helps because I have to put myself in it, but that's fine. I really enjoy it. But yeah, this is a good example of the rule of thirds. So this is something that you can definitely go forward and try yourself anywhere. It doesn't have to be an amazing backdrop. Just get used to getting those focal points and those crosshairs and just composing that shot. And that, I promise you, your photos will be elevated and they'll look a lot better because effectively the background is telling the story. You're not telling the story, you're just in it. And that's what I love. Again, storytelling, that's just me. But yeah, let's move over from the rule of thirds. By the way, if anybody's stuck or unsure, put it in the chat. And then LJ or Marty will tell me and I'll repeat something because I can't see it once again. So apologies if I'm talking too quickly.
Right now, it's all good. I think before the end of the night, you got to come back to night mode because there was some raised eyebrows about that, but you're all good.
Okay. Okay, we'll do that on question time, but I can always circle back to that. Okay, I'll move on. Okay, so golden hour. This is my favorite time of day. And I'm pretty sure I don't know if anybody's heard the term before, but it's effectively the time of days, or well, I'll just read it on here. It's a period of daytime shortly after sunrise or before sunset, when the sun is low on the horizon, creating that signature warm glow. I absolutely love sunrises and I love sunsets. That's peace to me. So yeah, just shots like this, even though this is a video, I just wanted to show you just how amazing the light can be. And I think lighting is natural lighting is your best friend, just in general, whether you want to create atmosphere, joy, pain, sorrow, introspection, whatever. That sun, that glow on your skin, incredible. So there's that. I'm going to give you a few examples of golden hour shots. The one on the left is actually the same place that I just was. That was in Lisbon, sunset in Lisbon. I was on a tour there. The middle one is probably one of it's part of a series of one of my favorite shots that I've taken, and that was my birthday. That was last month, watching the sunrise in Zanzibar. And funnily enough, I was when we were on the trip with Marty and LJ, the one in Turkey, I got up one morning to watch the sunrise. And while I was there by myself, just being grateful and thankful, I just had the urge. I said, you know what, this year I really want to watch the sunrise in Africa for my birthday, because I'd never done that before. So this picture means a lot to me because it was something that I thought up on a really great trip and made into another great trip. So I absolutely love that one. And also reflections, but we're going to get into that in a moment. And then the one on the right is my grandfather fast asleep, just as the sun is about to set. And I just love the lighting on this. Again, golden hour, sunlight, skin, amazing. Yeah, so that's golden hour. We'll move on to the next one. One thing I do want to say, a lot of these shots, they look great. They look like, oh, amazing. And one thing, as I guess, as content creators, there's always the image of everything being great first time, or everything becomes easy, but it doesn't. And even when you're taking these shots, and even when you're trying to get better at photography, it doesn't always go very well the first time. It will get better, by all means. Practice makes perfect. But one thing that we all definitely need, including myself, is patience. Because certain shots you just have to wait for. You know, they're not there when you are ready. You have to be there when they are ready. So the one on the left, as a quick example, that was not what the shot was meant to be. I was actually supposed to be really cool. That was in LA. Like, I was, chilling, nonchalantly looking out into the distance, and as the waves were coming up, but they came a little bit too high and they were a little bit too cold. And they went right up my back and right up my spine. And my friend happened to catch that. But I just love it because it just captures the fact that sometimes you just have to laugh at yourself. Not everything will go your way, but you can make something really cool out of that, and you can make a lesson out of it. So I really love that shot. The one on the top, I was playing around with reflections. In the next section, or in section, I really, really love reflections. And I'm going to talk you through those a little bit. But this particular shot, I was trying to get the neon in the puddle, and I saw this lady walking, and she was like halfway down the road, and I was like, oh, I really want to try and get her in motion as she goes past this, so I just basically had to crouch and wait. At first she stopped, or she started slowing down because she thought she was going to ruin my shot, and I was like, sort of gestured her to keep going, and then I took the shot, and then I showed her the shot, and I was like, do you like it? Do you mind if I keep that? And she was like, yeah, this looks amazing. So yeah, I really like that. And I like the fact that one leg is stationary and one leg is in motion, because again, it tells a story, and it's not just a static shot. So I really love that one. The one on the bottom, that one, I had to wait until 4 a.m. because I looked at the weather and realized that there was going to be snow. But I also I didn't want to wake up in the morning to try and get any particular shots, because I knew by that point cars would have gone through it, people would have walked through it. So I wanted to get the untouched snow. So I had to wait for it to fall, wait for a couple of hours, and then just go in the middle of the street and start posing and using props and things. Like, I was crazy, but thankfully no one was awake. So I managed to get some really cool shots. And I'm glad I waited for that. And the one on the right is actually, funnily enough, this one is a screenshot from a video. That's another thing as well. You can actually, there's no harm in recording a video and taking a shot when you see that perfect moment. Because I was taking a video of this lioness, and just that moment, I was just ready just in case she did something. And as her tongue came out to lick her face, I took that picture and I got that amazing shot, and I really, really love that one. So yeah, patience is a virtue. So yeah, that's patience. So now we're going to move on to perspective. So we've kind of covered a bit of composition. Again, if you have questions about night mode, I'll definitely circle back to that. And if any other questions will come up, we can do that. But for now, we're going to move on to perspective, thinking outside the box. And this is one thing I always try to do, because again, as I said before, I think certain shots and certain views are unique to us. And that's the same with I guess, how we see the world. So yeah, I'm always about thinking outside the box, and I'd encourage you to do the same as well. Because then, yeah, you stand out a lot better, I think. I don't know. But yeah, I love this photo because bar the lady at the front, everyone just looks like they're sitting down. But yeah, if you tilt it to its side, you'll realize that we're all just, everyone's just had their back to the floor. But I just love how they've made it look. It was actually a sensory escape room, which was pretty cool. So sight, sound, smell, all that kind of good stuff. So if you're ever in London, I definitely recommend that. So yeah, I, again, love to think outside the box when I'm taking photos. I like to just capture that moment and hopefully try to get that across to other people. Yeah, going back to a couple of slides ago when I said everything doesn't go according to plan, I love the shot in the middle, but to this day, I have a lot of hair now, but this is when I had no hair, like I'd shaved my hair off. But to this day, the fact that I'm not dead center in that shot really gets to me. But I still love the shot. I love the colors. I love the shapes. I just love the atmosphere that that gives. But yeah, these are just different ways that I try to, I don't know, just show my quirkiness, I guess. But yeah, it's always good if you can find something that people necessarily usually just walk past and don't think, give a second thought to, but you can make that into a prop or a background for one of your shots or one of your videos or one of your content. It's really going to make it stand out, because it's not just the same views that everybody else tends to get, you know. So yeah, so there's that. And I think one of my absolute favorite things is to play around with like reflections and mirrors and things like that. So again, and the one on the left, another perspective is these large metal balls on the floor. Everyone was taking the shot from above. I just wanted to get the reflection in that particular ball, just to tell a story, I suppose. And then the middle one, if anybody's ever been to London, that's Piccadilly Circus on a rainy day. I was being rained on and I was actually running to the train station, and I stopped and thought, actually, that's a really good shot. So let me sacrifice a bit, getting wet a bit for a couple of seconds longer and just take this shot. And what I actually did was lower myself. Instead of just taking it at head height, I brought it down so that I could then get the entirety of the big screen's reflection in the floor. Yeah, just to kind of give it that extra thing, because I'm actually quite tall, so getting down to a little bit lower than that is again seeing the world a bit differently for myself. And the one on the right is just me playing with mirrors. I love the symmetry of this shot. I'm just in a bathroom. I'm in a bathroom, in a really fancy bathroom. I like the look of the mirrors. I was like, okay, I'm just going to angle this. And that's another thing. Even though I'm not technically observing the rule of thirds, if you tilt it to its side, I am still just about in that third, that third of the shot. So it does still draw the attention to the subject, even though it's dead center, supposedly, but it's not really. But yeah, so reflections are really good to look at. Mirror, like looking through glass, anything like that, just to give it a bit of a different spin, will really make it stand out, I think. Let's go on to the next one. Angles. Yeah, so this one is, I love angles. I love playing around with things and not doing it the I guess quote unquote the right way. This was when I was in Rio, and I took a picture of the Christ Redeemer statue. And when I looked back at it, it was actually the wrong way. It was upright like this in my phone, even though I intended it to be the other way around. But I actually really prefer it this way. I just love the angle. I love the fact that the glare of the sun makes it look like I'm actually looking in the same direction as that. And yeah, I like that it's a super close up, but I'm not the focus of it. Again, the background is telling the story. And also, this is a really good tip if you are in a tourist, like a tourist heavy place, and you know there's like hundreds of people around you, because there were hundreds of people around me. But if you look at that, you would never tell. So having great angles like this, and just sort of having it focused upwards, or just focusing it away from the crowd, will make it seem a lot more tranquil, and it'll make it a lot more peaceful and make it seem like you're the only one there. I did on my page on Instagram, I visited a turtle sanctuary when I was in Tanzania. And just the way that I cut certain shots and edits and or the photography or the shot that I took makes it look like I'm pretty much the only one there. But if you've ever seen any of the Instagram versus reality videos of that place, you'll see just how packed it is. But yeah, it's just about playing around with that and just telling the story that you want to tell, I guess. So yeah, so that's that one. Another few examples of angles for me would be to, again, shoot upwards. Like I did on the left. So that's below, and then just doing a walk. And I actually had it slightly tilted because I wanted to give it a bit more of a personality than just having it dead straight. And it just kind of, and the fact that I've caught the shot as I'm walking, like mid stride, gives it more energy. So so doing things like that, like movement within the shot, makes it makes it more energetic, makes it more vibrant, makes it stand out a bit more and tells more of a story than if you're just basically stood there, which I do sometimes as well. But sometimes make it stand out a little bit, add a little bit more seasoning. It's pretty cool. And then the one on the right, that was actually the trip that we were on, the Turkey trip. I think Marty was looking at me like I was crazy when I was taking that. But yeah, it was cool. Like just an energy, just playing around with the flow of your body, like body shapes, really adds energy to a photo as well as a video. But yeah, it beats standing there posing all the time, like just a model pose all the time. Just have some fun with it, and then the joy that you're trying to portray will hopefully will translate into the shot, like I think that one does. That's one of my favorite shots. I did like that one on that trip. So yeah, so that was cool. Let's shimmy along. So black and white stuff. I haven't played around too much with black and white photography over the years, but I have done more recently. This one again takes reflection. Again, I love reflection. I love just doing something a little bit different. And with this one, I would have asked you what you think I used to make this reflection, but I actually used the screen or the face of another iPhone. And I just basically had the screen off and just angled it so that it just reflected the light and reflected the scene, and just used that as a mirror so that I could get this really interesting shot with this gentleman here. And yeah, it's playing around. I can't remember what country it is. It might be Bali, but there's a really famous, I can never remember the name of it, but there's this really famous landmark, and it looks like it's like these two big, I guess, pillars or walls, and in between you normally have somebody stood there, and there's like it looks like there's water, like the reflection of water, but when you go there, there's actually no water whatsoever, and it's just maybe the tour guide that's using an iPad or a mirror or something to create the illusion of water. And that's again something you can incorporate in the photography. But yeah, so one thing I was actually really curious about this past couple of years was how history books can be very deliberate with what they put in black and white and what they put in color. And a quick example, the first thing that I could think of, and it always used to bug me as a child or a teen, was John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King. And I realized in all of the history books, all of the books with Martin Luther King, anything that had to do with Martin Luther King was in black and white, and everything that had to do with John F. Kennedy was in color, including the assassinations, even though JFK's was in, I think it was 1963. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 1963, and then Martin Luther King's was 1968. So it was actually 5 years later, but everything is in black and white. And I realized that like black and white, you can use it to show that something, it gives the illusion that something is older than it is or further back than it is. And so what I did was play around with that, and I wanted to use it to empower as opposed to dampen, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's making sense. So when we were doing the Black Lives Matter protest in London, I obviously went out with my camera phone, wanted to take some shots, and I've selected these ones because in color they do tell a story, but I feel like using it in black and white, it amplifies it a bit more. And I don't know if that's the right word, and I don't know if you can understand what I mean or if it's coming across that way. But when I look at them, each of these shots with the color versus the black and white makes it a bit more it gives it a bit more gravitas, in my opinion. And I think that I just really like that. I think that for me, I really like it. And it also gives an illusion, not an illusion, but it gives the sense of unity. Because if you look at the top left shot, for example, the lady that's dancing in a circle, there was a big, massive circle where everyone was dancing and celebrating and someone was playing drums. But if you look at that one, you've got so many different colors in there. You've got the lady in the purple with the blue plastic gloves. you've got the red sign, you've got like multiple blue hand gloves in there because obviously we were still pandemic. But when you put it into the black and white, it just seems that everybody is just in unison. So I wanted to kind of play around with that and turn that sort of narrative on its head. But yeah, you can play around with black and white. And I have a friend that shoots exclusively in black and white, and you can do that. I might try and do a series on that, but yeah, just play around with it. There's so many different ways that you can tell a story. I just wanted to give you that as an example. Marty, how are we doing for time, by the way, or LJ? I'm not sure who's there because I realized I've been talking for a long time.
We're good. We're good.
Oh, amazing. Okay, good. I'll just keep going. But yeah, okay. So that's black and white photography. Yeah, so play around with it inside the phone app themselves. You've got some filters, and what I'm going to do is we're going to now go on to editing. So I'm going to give you a bit of a demonstration of a few editing things. We're going to do some live editing. So that's my phone right there. And that's actually, yeah, that's another one of the Zanzibar shots I had here as my thing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of this one. I'm going to go into this one. So there's a lot of shots in here that I just kind of correlated for this session. And we're just going to pick some random ones. I just wanted to show you a few. But this one here, actually, this is another screenshot from a video. So when I was in Hamburg, I did metal work, blacksmithing, sorry. And as I took it out and hit the hammer to the metal, that massive spark came out. But I just loved it. It was only for a fraction of a second. So what I did was just stop the video and try to find that fraction of a second and then take a screenshot. And I used that as a photo as well, because again, it tells the story. But yeah, what we're going to do, let's see if we can find something that we can edit. Let's see. I would like to try this one. So I'm going to revert it. So I've already edited this one. I'm gonna revert. So I'm going to show you how I got there. So this is how the shot looked by itself. So this is, where was this? This was in Agadir in Morocco. And I was just going for a walk, and I walked past these archways, and I just loved how the light hit the floor and created this image of the archways on the floor. And I just thought it looks great, but something I need to sharpen. I need to make it stand out a bit more. And I played around with a few of the filters. So I'm going to talk you through a few filters on here. So these are some of the editing tools. You've actually got an auto button, which I never use, but it's a good way. If you tap it, it will basically generate its own version of what it thinks would be a really good shot. Now you can stick with that, but I always encourage people to play around a little bit by themselves. So I'm tapping that again just to delete that. So we've got things like exposure, we've got brilliance, highlight, shadows, contrast, brightness, black point, saturation, vibrancy, warmth, tint, sharpness, definition, noise reduction, and vignette. I tend to go for the same 4 or 5. I'll show you what they normally are for me. Depending on what the shot is, I tend to default to brilliance just to bring it up a little bit. I'm not going to do that with this one because I'm going to make it black and white. And then I'd use the sharpness. But what I'm going to do is, if you look down here at the bottom, I'm going to go to this one here, and that is our filters. That's the iPhone's default filters. So if we cycle through these, we've got a few different ones, different vivids, whether it's warm and cool. We've got dramatic warm and cools, and then we have a series of black and whites. And that, so this is, so what I decided to do, I was actually going to originally do it in blue because I really liked this blue. And I thought if I would do the blue and then go up to here and up the vibrancy, and then maybe a bit of the saturation just to kind of overdo it. And then I would kind of go for a bit of sharpness just to, because I like hard like lines, and then maybe just the definition of it. So I was going to just stick with something like that. But then I thought, I actually really prefer it black and white. But one thing I do want to show you as well is that in the iPhone, whenever you're editing something, it has something called non-destructive editing. So what that means is, if I press done, which I have done. So that's it, saved it now as that. I can come back to that 2 years later and then hit the edit button. And then I can either tap the screen to give a preview of what it used to look like. So I've tapped it and it shows the original for a few seconds and then goes back to what you've done. Or I can press revert, and I can revert back to the original. So it doesn't matter what shot you've done or what editing you've done in your phone, you can always go back to the original one and then start from scratch if you want to. So that's a really good thing to remember. And it also it gave me a lot more confidence when it came to editing, because I felt it didn't feel like there was a point of no return, which is good. But yeah, I'm going to go back to the black and white. So I chose to do, out of the black and white, there was mono, there was silver tone, which it's black and white, but it's still got that silvery type of edge. I'm not sure if it translates on the screen, but I decided to go with noir because I liked the vibe that it gave. So I had it in noir. Oh, by the way, once you're in a filter, if you want to, there's a dial just below here, and you can choose the intensity of that. So if you wanted to have it with a little bit of color and make it just seem like it was dated, you could have it and stop it there somewhere, and you can still give it a pretty good atmosphere. But I went all the way to the top with noir. What did I do? I did a bit of sharpness. I went to the black point, and then that basically makes the black part blacker, as you can imagine, just to get rid of, some of the difference in the like the smudges or the difference in the tiles. So I did that, and then I added a bit more definition just to make it seem even sharper. And that was pretty much roughly what I did. And that's what I did with that particular shot. That was me playing around with black and white. Again, it's not something I tend to usually do with black and white, but I'm going to try and do it more because it does really give a cool atmosphere. So there's that one. Let's see if we can try another one. I do want to show you this one, actually. This was the Maldives, and it was, what time of the night was it? It was like 6 something in the evening. So the sun was pretty much beginning to set. If I show you what the original looks like, it's very like flat. So it's very flat. So what I did was sort of bring up, I'll show you what I've actually done on here. So I brought up the brilliance, added a bit of brightness because it was really dark and you couldn't really see much in there. And then I went to town with the saturation and a bit of vibrancy, and then always end up with a bit of sharpness, because especially if you're doing it from a distance, it can be a little bit grainy, especially in low lighting. So adding a bit of sharpness will hopefully tidy that up a bit. Don't overdo it, because if you overdo it, then it starts looking crazy like that. But yeah, just kind of give it a bit, just to give it a sense of definition. And let's see, I think we'll do one more. I'm just going to pick a random stop. Okay, I'm going to start with this one. All right, this one, I like textures as well. So this one here, if I press that, the original, it's basically that. But I didn't do too much with this one, actually. If you go down here, you can see that I don't think I've used any of these. But what I did was use the Vivid Cool on here. So this is an example of just using the preset filters instead of doing your own things. You can actually get some really atmospheric things on there, and it's good for textures. Like I love textures. So this is this wood one. Got the texture of those. You can almost feel it with those, and especially this one here. But yeah, it's just seeing these things from a different angle, I think. Yeah. Oh, as you can see, I like to capture motion. I've already said that. Like motion tells a story. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be in it. But yeah, just capturing those moments it already gives this an energy. Even before you do anything to it, you've got these two people are using hula hoops, and you already know how energetic that can be. So that tells a story right there. You've got this one here, hair tying. This was in Brooklyn. It was in. So I went to Afropunk. It was 2017. Went to Afropunk, but also Spike Lee's Block Party. I think that was where this was. So yeah, and just telling stories. Again, this lady here, amazing outfit. she's not, I didn't use the rule of thirds here at all. I was just like, she's going to stand out by herself. So sometimes it's okay to have somebody dead center if they are going to draw the attention anyway, regardless. Same thing here again. You've got people dead center, the outfits, the energy says all it needs to say. Then you've got shots like this, which are all about energy. I love capturing moments like this, like happy moments, you know. I remember, so I took a series of these photos with this guy who was doing like disjointing, dislocating his arms and things. But then it wasn't until like 2 years later I zoomed in and realized she was like looking dead straight into the camera. Like she was ready for the shot. But I love that. That's one thing I love about photography is you can always go back to that moment and you might see something that you didn't see at the time, even though you were trying to take that shot. So yeah, there's just a bit of editing stuff in there as well. But yeah, I think we'll move along to the next part, because I don't want to take up too much time on that one. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about accessories. So what do I use to take my photos? If I'm by myself, if I do solo travel, what do I do? Do I always go and ask somebody? No, because number one, someone isn't around all the time. And two, sometimes you don't want to give your phone to certain people that might be in the area, you know, you just have to use your common sense a little bit with that. If the vibe is right, if other people are taking photos around and it's a good thing, then by all means. But also for me, I know my angles. I know what I like, and you know, I know everybody can relate at least one time where you've given your phone to someone to take photos, and then they've taken the shots and then they hand it back, and you're like, "Oh, thank you so much. That was amazing," and it wasn't. So for me, I use certain accessories because I'm like, you know what? I know the image, I know the vision that I want. So let's make it happen. So I'm going to show you the two things that I pretty much travel around with: my Apple Watch, my tripod. Yeah, my Apple Watch pretty much, I use it everywhere I go. I have it. I have my extra charger for it. And when I bought it, I actually didn't realize, and a lot of my friends still didn't realize, that you can actually use your Apple Watch to take photos from your phone. So as long as your phone is within Bluetooth range of your Apple Watch, you can actually use it as a viewfinder. So you can see what your camera can see on the face of your watch. So if you've put your phone somewhere on the tripod or against against something, you've propped it up somewhere, you can actually look at your watch and see exactly where you are in that frame. So you can compose it using the rule of thirds or portrait mode or whatever you want to do. And then you can take that shot, and it normally does either a 3 or a 5 second countdown. You can choose whichever one you want. And then what it will do is it will take a burst, like it will take a burst of shots. So it will take 10 shots in a row, like simultaneously. And then you can go into your photos. It doesn't, when you go into your photos, it doesn't show like a row of 10. It will show it as one. But once you go into it, it will give you the option to, when you press edit or select, sorry, you can select out of the 10 that it's taken, which one you prefer. Because you might be in motion, you might be moving around, and some of them might be blurry. And then you can go through all 10 and select, oh, that's the one that I want. And then you can just choose to either keep that one or you can keep all of them. But I tend to just keep the one that I like, and then it will just get rid of the rest. So I do that with my watch. It also works with video. And yeah, sometimes a tripod is necessary. I'm very good with steady hand, but if I'm not holding the camera, I'd rather it be on a fixed tripod, because it's nothing worse than putting it against a rock and then you've gone and gotten yourself in position, you've got your pose right, and then you look over it and the thing's fallen over. It happens more than I would like to admit. But yeah, having a tripod, getting it propped up somewhere. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be upright like that. When I went to Iceland in March, and I went to this, so you've got the Blue Lagoon, but there's a new one called the Sky Lagoon. And because I was there, it was very new. It was under a year old at the time. There was almost nobody there. So I couldn't get anyone to hold the camera. So I propped it up on a rock, but it wasn't standing upright because the rock was jagged. So I jammed it in sideways. So the tripod was in sideways, and then I just adjusted my camera and how I wanted it to be, got the Apple Watch out, went backwards, and then just got the shot. So yeah, these two things are my best friends. I go everywhere with them. If you don't have an Apple Watch, that's okay. You can also get tripods that have a remote shutter for them as well. So those are pretty cool. And also, if you have wired headphones, you can, as long as the wire's not in the shot, you can actually use the click part on the wired headphones to actually take the shot, which is pretty cool. Oh, a good tip as well. If you're anywhere that's really cold, like for me, when I was in Iceland, I had obviously massive gloves on because it was freezing. But if I had to take a photo, I obviously couldn't use my finger to press the shutter. But I mean, most people might know, but if you use the volume buttons on the side of the phone, whether it's volume up or volume down, it will also take the shot for you as well. So if you do have gloves on, or you can't necessarily, you don't have, maybe your hands are wet and you can't, it's not picking up your fingerprint for the shutter, you can just use the side buttons as well. And it's also good if you're doing it in a landscape mode as well, because it's a lot easier to press the volume buttons than it is to press the screen. So yeah, so those are the main accessories that I use. If you have any questions about those particular ones, by all means put them in the chat, because I will circle back to that if I have to, if I've said anything that doesn't make sense. Oh, also, all of the Apple Watches do this, so you don't have to have the latest and greatest Apple Watch. Since they came out, all of them do that. So it's just a little camera app that's on the face of the watch, and you just press that, and then it opens up your camera on your phone, as long as, again, it's within the range. And it also works with video as well. So yeah, so those are the accessories. Here are a few examples of some shots that I've taken with my Apple Watch at a distance, using either a tripod. Did all of these have tripods? Yeah, all of them had the tripods. Yeah, so using my tripod and my Apple Watch. I absolutely love the one in the top left. I just love it. For this one, I used the, speaking of lenses, going back to the beginning, how I achieved this shot was by using the ultra wide lens, which is the one that is on both phones, but it's the one that gives you the widest possible angle. I put it down at the bottom of the swimming pool, so it gave you that broad expanded space. And then I basically had to balance and shimmy along the side of the pool and try not to fall. And then look at my watch. And then I was basically trying to frame where I wanted to be in it, and then decided, instead of just standing stationary, I do have a couple that are stationary, which also look pretty good. But for this one, I wanted to try extending my arms to make my body seem a bit more fluid and add a bit more movement and energy to the shot. So I absolutely really love that one. Yeah, so then the second one was in Toronto, just playing with light. Like I love light, I love silhouettes. Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory, that one. If you can, like I said, lighting is your best friend. It doesn't have to be golden hour. You can still get that good sunshine just in general, and just play around with light and shadow, and it will really add atmosphere to your photos as well. And speaking of atmosphere, the third one is in the Tate Modern, which is a gallery in London. And I just love this. It seems like it's smoky, and it looks like people are walking through smoke, but it's just sunlight. And I just love that. It's just, for me, it tells a really cool story. Although, side note, I feel like my camera I might not have cleaned my lens on that one, so my bad. But I think it worked in that very, very, very rare occasion. But please keep clean your camera lenses, because it's rule number one. Unless you want like a really soft effect, in which case you can do that, you can use that. And if you wanted to add different colors, I've seen people use colored gels or different materials that you can put in front of the camera lens to give it a bit of an otherworldly type look as well. So you can do things like that. You can put that really thin gauze material in front of the camera and put it really close, and it can sort of give the illusion of smoke if you do it correctly. So you can do that as well. That one there is sailing in Turkey. Good vibes, good people. Had an amazing time, as we've already spoken about. That's where we already bonded on that, so that was amazing. The one at the bottom took a while. So this one was in, well, Athens, as you can see. But I was walking down the street and I just saw this and I wanted to get this shot. But having your watch count down and then trying to jump and make it look good is very difficult. So there were a lot of ones where I would jump too quickly, or I jump too late, or my slipper would fly off and it looked crazy. but I managed to get a couple of good ones. So I'm quite happy with that one. The one next to that is the Sky Lagoon again. That was me propping the tripod into the rock. And then the last one there is, as I said, was the Maldives, and it was the night mode. I showed you how I sort of achieved that image on there as well. So yeah, I want to give you a couple of app recommendations. So these are some really good photo editing apps. I have them all on my phone. Some of them I use more than others. And I'll tell you, if I don't use the inbuilt editing apps that are on the iPhone, I do tend to gravitate towards Lightroom and R&I films. So those ones, just to add a bit of I don't know, a bit of extra seasoning to the photo, like just something extra, just a little bit of an elevation to it. Visco is amazing. Camera Plus I used to use when I wanted to soften a photo, because they have a really good soften photo option on there. And sometimes I still go back into that, but I very rarely soften it now. Again, if you want to just have a dirty camera and it kind of gives you the same effect. Snapseed is really good if you want to get down to the nitty gritty of Lightroom too, if you want to get the nitty gritty of the editing and of making alterations. And the top one, Touch Retouch, I discovered that on the Turkey trip. I had no idea that was a thing, but I absolutely love it. And it's a good app if you want to get rid of like unwanted things in the background, whether it's a signpost that's messing up your background, or people. I used it to get rid of like about 12 people that were just in the sea in the background of one of my shots, and it works really, really well. It's really intelligent, and it doesn't look warped if you do it correctly. So that was a really good one. I think it was about £2 or maybe dollars, I'm not sure, but these apps are ones that I can recommend because I have them myself, and I use them for different things. I try to do as little as possible when it comes to retouching and color correction, but sometimes, as you can see, it elevates that a little bit more. So yeah, what are we now with time? Okay, that's good. And any questions? I think we're at the end of it now. I hope that made sense. I hope I wasn't going too quickly. But yeah, that's it. I mean, those are the basics. Again, like, if you, by all means, you can always give me a shout if you have other questions, but let's go to the ones in the chat and see if I can answer any of them right now.
Actually, that was great. No, thank you so much. We do have some questions. Let me switch the screen to you.
Oh, let me stop.
So the first question, sorry, let me get the questions up. The first one, people want to know, what are you using to demo your phone on the screen?
That took me a while, but it's a very good question. So I'm using Keynote, which is the Apple equivalent to PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint. So that's what I made my slideshow presentation in. And it's a new feature called live video. Actually, I might be able to show you. Let me see if I can do that really quickly. If I can, I'm winging it. So if it doesn't work, then please forgive me. But let's see. Go to entire screen. Let me share the entire screen. Okay. Can you see? It
is, well, 1 second. Oops.
I don't know if you
yes, we can see. Yes, we can see the screen.
Yeah, you see? Okay, so I'm going to.
Sorry, sorry, everyone. I'm taking over from Marty. So okay, we can see the screen now.
See the screen? Amazing. Yeah. Okay, so let me go. Which one did I use? Live editing. Okay, so with the new, in fact, let me do a fresh one. Let me see if I can add a slide. I'm gonna add a slide, blank slide. Okay, so up here, so we've got something called live video, and live video, if I press that, it's going to show me. So it basically uses your camera, but if you connect your phone by either USB or USB-C to the computer, you can also use that as an external source as well. So if I press this, This is where I'm hoping I can still remember how I did this because it took a while. Is it action? No. Let me see. So live video. Is it format? Live video. So live video format. Yeah, this. Yeah. Okay. So format. Live video, and you go to default camera. So default camera is the camera in your computer. But if you connect it, your phone eventually will come up and it will choose it as a new source. So the new source is basically that. So that's my screen. So what I actually did was I actually got the outline of an iPhone, and I basically put it in there. Let me see. I don't even know where I put that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I saved it. Let me try. Okay, let me try something. Let me just try, since you can all see my screen anyway. I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to go to iPhone 13 lookup PNG. Okay, yeah. So I and then went to images. So I got an image from here. Maybe this one. I think it might have been this one. Let's see. So yeah, I went to the website, downloaded it. So it's there, my download. So then what I did was drag and drop. Okay, so we're back on here. And then what I did was, oops, no, so I put this here. No, one or the other. So I put it over here. And then you can actually see these corners here will help you resize it. But on the left here, you've got a green one. And once you press that, it actually helps you curve. So it softens those curves. So that's all I did. So I did that, and I basically superimposed it into here. And now that is my screen. I'm so glad. I'm so proud of myself for remembering that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so no, while you have your phone on the screen, another question we were asking is, how do you get the grid on the photos?
Oh yes.
Or I guess in the camera.
Yeah, good question actually. So you're going to go to here. So you go into your settings. You scroll down to camera, which should be there at the bottom. You press that. And then I've actually turned it on for the demo purpose and didn't even use it. But yeah, you go to grid and you just toggle that on. So then once you go to your camera, you see here, can you see the grid on there? So it's actually on the screen now. So that's really good for, I'm actually pointing at my screen like you can see it, but oh, if I do that, that helps actually. So it can actually help you line up your rule of thirds and get it, use the crosshairs here, whether it's that way or whether it's that way. So that's how I did it.
Nice, thank you.
You're welcome, no problem.
Next question. Let me get you back on. Next question is, so someone's asking, do you use any kind of software to massage your photos after you've taken them? And you showed the apps you use, and which ones were you saying I guess to use the most?
The ones that I use the most are actually, to be honest, if I'm ever going to really massage or elevate my photos, I tend to use the ones in the actual iPhone more so than any of the other ones. But if I do venture out of that, if I can't quite get the vibe that I want, I will go into RNI Films. So RNI Films is a really good one. I think it's free actually. So RNI Films or yeah, RNI Films is my main go-to, or Lightroom sometimes. But I can be really lazy, so Lightroom is a lot more to do. Yeah, RNI Films helps.
And is Lightroom free now? I can't remember if they made that.
So Lightroom, it's a good question. So I don't think Lightroom is free, but if you have, so I have the photographer's plan for Adobe, which I think is $9.99 a month.
Okay.
And that gives you Photoshop, Lightroom, and a couple of other, I can't remember what the other ones are because I don't use them, but it gives you those. And it also gives you CC, which is Creative Cloud, which means that you can use it across all of your devices. So if I've done an edit on my phone, if I go back home and I open Lightroom on my computer or Photoshop on my computer, it's already there. So it allows you to make those edits on the go and across your devices. And it just makes things a bit easier than having to airdrop or move something from one to another. But yeah, I don't think it's free to download, but I don't think it's necessarily free to use. So I think you might have to be subscribed to one of their plans for that. But I think they normally do offers different times of the year, so you might get it for free for a few months or something, and I'm sure they do have a free trial, so it's definitely worth checking out.
Nice, thank you. Okay, the next question is, any tips for shooting photos for publications or our blogs versus IG/social content?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I think when I'm doing something away from IG, I tend to, a lot of the things that I've mentioned, I'll tend to use a lot more. For example, I'll use portrait mode. I'll probably put a little extra effort into editing, because one thing that I've noticed with Instagram, and I'm pretty sure everybody else has noticed it, is that they only really care about, like, the algorithm only really cares about video, which is really annoying to me because I love photography. I had to learn. I mean, I was always into videography, but reels, for example, I was always used to making long form video. So having to condense it into seconds, it's a bane for me, but I've gotten used to it now. But to answer your question, publications, I think, again, the use of light is really important in just the composition of it. Regardless of whether you're doing an outdoor shot or a studio shot, there's a lot of gravitas that can be added into something with just the right light. You don't really have to do too much. Just play around with your angles. If it's a person that you're taking a picture of, try different options. Try doing a super wide one, try doing a mid one, try doing a close up, because you can always, again, non-destructive editing that I talked about before, you can always take a shot and then crop it in to get a section of a face and just play around with that. That's one thing I've started playing around with more recently, is taking a picture of a person or a face, like a close-up of a face, and then really pinching in to just get a piece of that face, like maybe the bottom quarter or an eye or an ear or a bit of hair, and just play around with that, because that, if you wanted to put it into a collage, you can, but that by itself will also tell its own story. And I think if you're doing something editorial, thinking outside the box a little bit more will be really beneficial. Like, this is for content creators just in general, but it's not necessarily for Instagram. So you can, I'd say play around with your angles, play around with the lighting, and don't be afraid to crop, and don't be afraid to, especially if you're doing it on an iPhone, don't be afraid to crop, and because you can always go back. That's what I was going to say. Lost my train of thought for a second, but you can always go back with the non-destructive editing. So don't be afraid to play around and experiment. Something might sound really crazy, like, oh, I'm going to zoom really close into one person's like left nostril. But it might actually give a vibe. You never know. If you get that good left nostril and you play around with the lighting and a bit of the filtering, you might have an editorial like front cover fit on your hands. You never know. It depends on what story you're trying to tell. So I hope that answered the question. But if it didn't, just
yeah. And if anyone ever wants like any kind of creative examples, definitely check out Ashley's profile. He's very creative, and he'll really surprise you what you can do with your iPhone.
Yeah. And my DM, I was going to say my DMs are always open, but ask me if you need to. Like,
so we have 2 more questions. Well, 1 question. Oh, 3. But I think you might have answered this already. But it says, how do you use Apple Watch to take the photo and preview shot? But you answered that question already. And then here's a good question. How do you store your photos for easy use for social? My phone storage is always a struggle.
Yeah. So I use the cloud. I use iCloud a lot. And annoyingly for me, I have to pay for like a terabyte of iCloud space. No, 2 terabytes. But there are other ways of storing it. I'm just really bad at that. But I would say anything cloud-based is a really good idea. So whether it's iCloud and getting extra storage space on there, whether it's Google Drive, whether it's Dropbox, each one of those normally gives you like a certain amount of space for free, like 50 gig or whatever. I tend to do that if I need to. The only downside to that is that if you don't have internet connection, you can't really access them. So you'd have to kind of do them, like download them first. There is something in the iPhone called optimized storage, where you can optimize your photos storage. And what it will actually do is when you take a photo, it stores the raw original photo in your iCloud space, and then it downloads the preview on your phone. So I don't know if you've ever gone back into your old photos and then you've pressed it and it's really out of focus, and it takes a second for it to load in the bottom right hand corner, and then it comes up really sharp. That's because you've got your optimized photos on. The plus side of that is it helps you save a lot of space on your phone. I've got, I think, like a 256 gigabyte iPhone, and I've got just under 60,000 photos and videos on it. Too much. But the downside is if I want to go all the way back up and I don't have internet connection, it's just like, forget it. So yeah, you can play around with that. There are other ways of kind of jigging and getting around it, but I would say the best, most straightforward way would be to get your cloud storage, and then just make sure you've got compartmentalize things, put them in their own folders. One thing that's really helped me on my iPhone is to create folders. So for each of my trips, I've got a folder with the country on it. Like last month, I just did my 12th country in 12 months, which I was really chuffed about, for my birthday. And each one of those countries has its own folder. So it just helps me find things. And then it's also a good way to do spring cleaning, because once you're going through those photos and you're like, oh, I want to definitely put that in that folder. This one was a mistake. Let me just delete it. It helps you go through and just get rid of all of the things that would just sit there otherwise and just take up space.
Nice. And I guess so we have one last question, and question is, what good face/body retouching apps do you recommend?
I'll be honest, I don't use them. I don't know that I wouldn't be the best person. I've heard of like Facetune, but I've never used it to say that that's a good one. But depending on what phone you have, if you use portrait mode, especially in the newer models like the 12 and the 13, it does all that stuff for you anyway. It doesn't necessarily like make you look like a different person, but especially if you are combining it with golden hour lighting, it doesn't matter. You're going to look like 5 years younger anyway. So just it's all about the lighting. Get some good lighting, and then try your portrait mode if you've got that on your phone as a selfie. I'd say take one without the lighting, like in just normal stark lighting or like artificial light. Take one that way and then take it with natural lighting outside, and you'll notice the difference straight away. So unfortunately, I can't recommend one because I haven't used one. But I would say the best face tuning and body tuning app is outside, like burning in the sky. Like the sun will do that. With body retouching, I will find out actually. What I'll do is I'm going to do some research and I'm going to put it on my story. So I'm going to answer that question a bit later on in my story. I'm going to put that on there. But thank you for that, because I've never thought about that, but we'll look into that for you. I hope that helps.
Nice. Well, Ashley, thank you so much. This has been amazing. We've all learned a ton. We spent a week with Ashley in Turkey, and I still learned a lot just watching this. So thank you so much. For everyone else, we will have the recording to you in a few days. And if you have any questions, I guess feel free to reach out to Ashley at the Traveling Sensei with 2 L's. 2 L's. And I guess keep a lookout for our next webinar. And I guess everyone, thank you.
Also, good luck with the competition.
Oh yes,
yeah, I can't wait to see everybody's photos. I'm looking forward to it. I will try. I mean, I'm obviously going to be judging them. If you want some feedback on some of them, if it's not like, obviously don't send me like 50 photos, but if you maybe like have 1 or 2 and you think it's great, but maybe it could be a bit better, just reach out and I'll if I can help, I'll try and do that as well. So, but yeah, absolutely. Good luck on the contest. I can't wait to see what everybody comes up with. Try and use some of the elements. You don't have to try and pile them all into one photo. You can try different ones and different photos, but I can't wait to see what you will do.
Yes, well, Once again, thank you, Ashley, and hope everyone has a good evening or rest of the week.